You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. As always, a proud member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all those great shows to get great Patriots content all week long. But tonight, it's the Patriot Nation podcast with the guy, Pat Lane, here with my man, Matt St. Jean. And Matt, the madness has officially started. March Madness just off of the bang. Four 10 seeds and above win today. Obviously, a bunch of games to be played tonight as well. So some real madness going on.
I think my favorite moment of the day is that sequence at the end of the High Point Wisconsin game. And like it is the most college basketball thing because it's chaos on I think it was an inbounds play or whatever it was. You get someone stealing the basketball, things going the other way, and then you've got a college player hitting the go-ahead shot on a fast break, and the announcer goes, and that's his first 2-pointer of the season. Because all he does is shoot threes. He was 0 for 4 on 2-pointers on the season before that. The first one he hits is to put his team up to pull an upset in March Madness.
Well, and what's crazy about it is that you see some of the shots the guy takes, and he's pulling up from flipping half court, for God's sakes. And it's just like, and he's just draining threes like an absolute lunatic. And so the fact that they won that game in that moment is pretty awesome. And I listened to part of my take, which of course, for those of you that don't know, Big Cat is a huge Wisconsin fan, and of course was talking up this High Point kid before the brackets were released. And then of course they're playing High Point, and he's like, "Oh no, we're gonna lose this game." And he's like, "I know this guy's gonna do something ridiculous," and of course that's what ends up happening. So. But it's one of those things where it's like a guy gets hot and there's just nothing you could do about it, And Golke had a similar thing, playing for Bryant. Of course, Golke was a full-time player who played a ton of minutes. This kid plays 10, 15 minutes a game. But, it's just wild that you just never attempt a 2-pointer. Like, he just doesn't shoot him. And, he just drains outside threes. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things that's fun about college sports in general, too, is that, like, when the players are worse overall, you have to come up with more creative schemes to make it work.
Yeah.
Or you have to have guys specializing in ways that you can't do when all of the players are better. Like
100%.
You can't really have an NBA player who only takes threes and does absolutely nothing else.
It's true.
You just can't put that guy on the court, at least with any kind of consistency. In college, that guy's your best player because you are High Point University, and you might still lose games, but when he's on, you're almost impossible to beat.
Well, that's Sam Hauser, right? Sam Hauser's a guy who he really couldn't do anything but shoot threes, and now he plays a little defense, and he's a decent passer, and he does everything better. He's a good 3-point shooter still, and that's what he does. This is his role, but he still does more than just that. And so it's interesting. And also, I was talking to Matt. We were talking about this before, but the UNC VCU game was wild. UNC's up 19 points and ends up blowing it at the end. And, the end of the game happens, and then they get to overtime, and, like, no one scores the entire over. I think it was, I don't even know. It was like 9-5 or something like that in overtime. It was ridiculous in the last 5 minutes.
The overtime was crazy because both teams were getting, like, quality. They were running their offense as well, it looked like, but nobody could hit a shot. And you could tell that the shots were all over the place. No one had any gas left in the tank.
Yeah. It was, I'm sorry, it was 7-3 in overtime.
Ugly.
Which is just insane. And we were talking about before, but, UNC VCU, they get the ball, tie game, and UNC has just one of the worst inbounds plays you'll ever see. Getting the ball to the big man, expecting him to be able to hand off to the point guard or stupid, incredibly stupid. He turns the ball out of bounds. VCU gets the ball back with 2.5 seconds left, And instead of like, and they're in the backcourt, but they're kind of like, side out of bounds. But instead of getting the ball, to a guy running towards the basket, they all set up in the front court, and it ends up getting picked off, and UNC gets a shot at the buzzer. Like, what are you doing? Why are you making this more difficult than it needs to be? Just some really, really bad coaching down the stretch there from both teams. And, ended up not biting either of them. Well, of course, UNC would have helped if UNC had scored, but ended up not, killing VCU there. But it was just like, what are we doing?
Yep, and that's the fun of college basketball, right? Like I said, the players are worse, the coaches are worse. You get chaos because they're just not good enough at what they're doing. The unexpected happens.
Yeah.
Side note, speaking of Sam Hauser, he actually was a good rebounder when he played in college. I will say that.
Was he?
But he played for Marquette, so I actually got to broadcast some Sam Hauser games in college because he played at Providence.
How about that? Look at that, man.
Coming back around there. I believe the only game of his at Providence I actually would have broadcast was a pretty big blowout win for him, loss for my Friars. So I don't have any memories of that one in the bank.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's how about this, Andre? So I just realized this. I don't watch college basketball. So Andre Stojakovic, if those of you that watched professional basketball back in the day, Peja Stojakovic, who was an awesome player for in the NBA for quite a while for the Kings and a bunch of different places, is the son. That's his dad, and he plays for Illinois. So that's kind of cool. He's just shooting free throws, and I'm like, wait a second, Stojakovic? I'm like, no, it's got to be the same guy. And sure enough, it is.
Can't be that many guys with that.
Yeah.
Side note, I want to give one more piece of love here in March Madness. St. Louis, their mascot, the Billikens. Still not entirely sure what a Billiken is, but I love it.
Yeah, I don't know either. And they have
looked it up previously, but I don't remember.
Oh my God, this guy 21. Oh my goodness, that's my favorite guy in the tournament right there. Look at this guy for St. Louis. Look at this guy with the rec specs on.
Oh, Robbie Avila.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a legend!
Yeah, he's awesome.
What a legend. He looks like he's out there running men's league.
We should have started a bracket group for the podcast.
We should have
next year.
Yeah. Yep. My goodness. So. Anyways, all right. Some goings ons here in the NFL world, right? Jaylen Waddle with a trade gets moved to the Denver Broncos. I don't know. How do you feel about the return here? Right? They trade Waddle. The Broncos trade 30 overall. Their third and fourth round pick, and they get back a fourth round pick as well with Jaylen Waddle. I almost feel like those picks are close enough together that I almost feel like you're moving down from the end of the third to the top of the fourth, and then giving up a fourth round pick to do it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think this is a phenomenal trade for Denver.
Yeah.
Waddle is explosive. He hasn't had quite the production the last couple seasons. Has not hit 1,000 yards since 2023. He has one year where he has had like really significant production, like almost 80 yards per game back in 2022.
Yeah.
He's also very questionable quarterback play. I look at Sean Payton's offense, what Denver wants. They very badly need some kind of over-the-top game breaker for them. And Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin can both be that, but in a role player kind of way.
Yeah.
Jaylen Waddle can be that in an every down wide receiver kind of way. And I think timing-wise, this makes sense for Denver. This is the time to go all in.
Mm-hmm.
I think getting Cortland Sutton into more favorable matchups and also like clearing passing lanes for Bo Nix. If you're going to force teams to play safeties deeper because of the speed of Jaylen Waddle, you're probably just going to have a lot of easy underneath over the middle type throws where Bo Nix can thrive. think there's a really nice, second and third order effects from this that help out the rest of your offense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a good trade for Denver. I think they gave up a lot to do it, but I also think, their roster's really good. They're a really good team, man. They're a really good team. And so now you throw, you threw Waddle into that mix with a contested catch guy like Sutton, who's an explosive play, right? Franklin and Pat Bryant, I thought played really well. And, Tony Starks kind of says this here too, like Sutton, Waddle, Franklin, and Pat Bryant. Like, it's a really good receiving core. And so I think, you're giving them more options. I think Waddle hasn't been good, but Tua has been terrible. Tua is so bad that they're paying $94 million for him not to play there. So, like, it's, we all know how bad Tua is. So to a certain extent, I understand why the production hasn't been there. I also think for Waddle, this is the best case scenario for him as well, because he goes to a place that has a guy like Sutton who is difficult to put a one-on-one matchup against. And so it's going to open some things up for you, for him. So I like the deal a lot. I think Miami, it makes a lot of sense too. They're just rebuilding. They're just like, get everyone out of here. And, I don't really understand why they made the move to get Malik Willis, but I guess they had to spend money somewhere. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I guess it is what it is,
Sticking on Denver for a second. I think the interesting thing, like, I think the timing of this move is correct. Like, there's like day 2 and 3 picks moving around here, which really aren't that impactful. And the only pick you're really giving up, like the one that you feel a lot that you're losing, is that first round pick. You're going to get a receiver as good as Jaylen Waddle at that point in the draft? Probably not. And their roster is already very good. And you have the cap space for it because you're on the rookie contract thing. Like, this is a trade I would probably love for New England if it was available to them. It's just not, because it's in the division.
Right.
So this is the right time to make this move for, this is a Denver team that was, I think, at least from their perspective, you are a healthy quarterback in the AFC Championship game away from going to the Super Bowl. They probably get blown out by Seattle the exact same way New England did, I think, if they get through. Just maybe not as bad, but I don't know. That defense is really good, and with how Drake May looked against it, I really think Bo Nix would have struggled mightily in the Super Bowl. But I think this is the right move for them. I do think the flip side of this is that there's a very real chance the Broncos still finish like third in the division.
It's true.
Because we don't really know. I think they have the third best odds to win that division right now. Part of that's like we don't really know what the Chiefs are. But the Chargers should get better and should be better coached next year, just from a health perspective, and bringing in Mike McDaniel, and things went as poorly as they could have gone for the Chargers last year, and went as well as they could have for the Broncos last year with what they have. So you should have some shifting there. So I think this is the right move, and there's also a world where we look back in a year and it's like, oh, that was fun, and the Broncos went 10-7.
Right. Which is certainly possible. Yeah.
From Miami's perspective, I get why they do this. I'm also a little bit scared, I think, because that roster is not good in Miami. You just don't have a lot of good players. I don't love the idea of then getting rid of even more good players. My read on things there, at least I thought my read on things, was that you're basically trying to tank so that you can get a top quarterback and reset.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do that, someone like Jaylen Waddle might actually be a valuable piece to keep, so that when you bring in a young quarterback, he's got someone to throw to. Because what if you draft a receiver at 30, and this goes how it did for Tennessee when they traded A.J. Brown? It's like, all right, well, maybe they draft someone. He's awful. It's like, all right, even with Jaylen Waddle getting a little bit older and costing a lot of money, you might have just rather had him and put it all together. And then you mentioned the Malik Willis thing. I just think they know Malik Willis, and they think he's a good lottery pick at the position. So you might as well, you have the money for it, so sign him. And if it works, then great. You're not going to be in a position to take a quarterback the next year, and you can just build around Willis. And if he's not good, all right, well, you're tanking. You can go draft the quarterback you were going to take otherwise.
Right. Yeah, it's bizarre, and I don't really know. I don't really get it. I don't really understand. I don't know if there's a plan in place, and I think that's one of the big things for me with Vrabel is I feel like there's a specific plan in place, that he has a plan about what he wants to do. Right, him and Ryan Cowden and Elliott Wolf, like they have a plan. I just don't know if Miami has a plan.
I think they do. I think this is the tear it down to the studs year, and they're tearing it down to the studs, and there happen to be a quarterback available that they think has a chance to be a starter. So if you think you can get that, you add them because it's quarterback, it's the most important position in the sport. You keep
that's a fair point
at it until you get it right.
Yeah, it's a fair point. That's a fair point. So,
I wonder what happens with Achane here now.
Well, so, allegedly, they're not going to move him, but like I don't know. I don't know if I'd believe much from them.
Here's I have my skepticism about like running back value and everything. I also think Achane's a good player, and he's not just a good runner, but he's a good receiver too. And like I don't know, I think the Drake May stuff showed when you draft a good quarterback, he can just be good on his own and elevate you.
Right.
And I also think the goal isn't just like the goal is to win football games as a team. The Dolphins obviously have a ton of dead cap right now, but that's going to get freed up here down the line. You're going to have a lot of cap space because you don't have many good players on your roster. Someone like Achane, who's clearly good and cheap and young, who even when you pay him as a running back still won't be as expensive. It'll be like it's like wide receiver 2 money he's going to get at the most.
Yeah.
You want that for your, like if you're going to have a rookie quarterback come in and you got a guy you can hand it off to 20 times a game and feel confident that those plays aren't going to be wasted, that helps you. So
it's fair.
I don't think I would trade him.
I wouldn't trade him either. And they say he's not available. I certainly wouldn't make him available. I just don't think it makes sense. And again, like you say, if you are drafting a quarterback, you want some pieces around him. And I think that could be a spot where you have a guy, that's a very good player.
When I think Achane's someone you could sign to, like he doesn't turn 25 until halfway through the season. And you could sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal. And depending on how that's structured, like you could still sign him to that and trade him later. You could sign him to that, keep him for 2 years as you're developing around the new quarterback, and then trade him when he might have 2 years left on his deal and you're still not quite where you want to be, but you've already drafted another running back and it's the deadline and some contender lost a running back and they want someone for a playoff run. And if that opportunity comes up, you can still make that move later.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fair point. That's a fair point. So, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens now. And I guess we can, I don't know if you want to talk about it right this second, but like, to me, I don't think this has a ton of impact on the AJ Brown deal. I just don't think it does. I think the money on Jaylen Waddle is very different. He's a full year younger, a year and a half, I think, younger, which isn't crazy, but he's still a good amount younger.
Definitely. Well, and with that, like much smaller injury history than
very true.
AJ Brown. Yeah. Like in terms of like how much wear is on the tires, I think Waddle is significantly fresher than AJ Brown is at this point.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that people are like, oh, now the Patriots going to give up, guaranteed to give up a first and a second. Or it's like, what are you talking about? No, I don't believe that. And as a matter of fact, I think if that were the case, then, and so look, here's the way I look at it. Some people think that this then impacts and gives the Eagles more leverage, but I think it gives the Patriots more leverage because now there's another team off the board that's made a trade, right? I don't know if Denver was in on A.J. Brown or not, but if they were, or if they were potentially in on him, now they're out. And I think that, you're still in this situation where it's like, yeah, okay, maybe that's the value, but just because that's the value for Jaylen Waddle doesn't mean that that's going to be the value for A.J. Brown. And so I just think I think the Patriots have a steadfast line that they're going to hold on. I hope, and if that's the case, then the Eagles can either move them or not. That's up to them, right? And it seems like the Eagles kind of have to move them, And so if that's the case, then you're going to sit here. I find it very hard to believe that we can have an entire offseason of everyone saying, he's got to get traded, 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 and then not have him get traded.
So I think the contract situation ends up being the biggest difference between these two, in that it's the combination of the contract situation and team timeline.
Yeah.
The Eagles are trying to win right now.
Right.
So taking on additional money on A.J. Brown's contract this year, it makes that harder. The Dolphins are actively not trying to win this year. So taking on extra money this year is not an objective to them.
Right.
And that, in terms of value to the organization, makes a massive difference to these two. So I don't think that these situations really end up having all that much bearing on one another. It's just so different. I was on the A.J. Brown, does he actually even get traded side of things? There's a little part in my brain that goes, all right, if you're an organization, A.J. Brown wants out, but you want to keep him. What do? One of the things you could do is make it so obvious that you want to trade him. So you can go back to his camp and say, hey, man, we tried to trade you and we can't make a deal. Come on back and play for us. I don't actually think that's what's happening here, because the Eagles have been seemingly so insistent on trying to get rid of him.
Right.
But also, if they were that desperate to get rid of him, then to get rid of him now, it would be done. Because you'd say, hey, we just need him off the roster. We're going to take whatever the best offer is at X date and go for it. So this could also all just be media smoke, because they're going to trade him, but they'd like to trade him sooner. So they're going to see if they can get something before 6/1, and it's not going to happen. And they're on June 2nd, they're going to take whatever they think their best offer is and just go for it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The whole situation is bizarre to me all around. The Eagles are a well-run organization. They've won Super Bowls with A.J. Brown. The fact that they want to get rid of him so badly does not feel like a good look for him.
I agree.
I agree. Still makes me so skeptical.
Well, and this is one of those things where it's like, it reminds me of the Randy Moss stuff that was going on in Oakland. Because it was still Oakland back then. I always make that mistake still, but it was back then it was still Oakland.
Yes.
He was traded for a 4th-round pick. It was a big red flag that Oakland's trying to move on from one of the best teams, or from one of the best players in the NFL. Right? And so you say, okay, well, if that's the case, then if you're trying to move on from him, whoa, what are we doing here? And so I think that that's a concern. I think if I were the Patriots, I'd be concerned about that. Now, maybe it's a little bit different because Vrabel has a past relationship with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown grew up a Patriots fan, has been very vocal about the fact that he is a Patriots fan. Maybe it's different, right? But I still don't love it. Still doesn't feel great, right? And so I just look at it and I wonder, what exactly are they going to do here? I can't imagine them giving up too much for him, regardless of what Jaylen Waddle gets traded for. I don't care about that. Allegedly, that they have a deal already in place for June 2nd or something. Yeah, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that's just speculation and conjecture at this point.
Yeah.
So maybe they have a deal in place, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Who knows? But I think it'd be kind of silly for the Patriots to say to them, hey, let's agree to terms right now when the draft is a month away or whatever. That doesn't make any sense.
It's also like the Randy Moss situation when that happened. He played 2 years in Oakland, and they were awful. They won 6 games. It was last year North Turner, 1 year Art Shell there. Just a moribund franchise at that point.
Yeah,
AJ Brown seems to be in a similar situation with his team after winning a Super Bowl with them.
yeah,
And that to me is again just such a massive red flag. And it could just
absolutely.
be, and it's not, it's something that has to be felt out. It's not a deal breaker because everyone's worked in an office where the company might be successful, but you don't like your boss. Maybe the Eagles are winning, but he doesn't like Sirianni, or he and Jalen Hurts don't get along or whatever.
Right,
And if
right.
that's how it is, and he wants to be somewhere else, like I get that. I think that's understandable. This also carries risk, and I don't know. It's like we've been saying on here for I think months now. When whoever's trading for him has to take on all that risk, and the Eagles have to take on all that money, neither side really has any incentive to come up with a deal here before June 2nd.
Right. Right. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And again, if you're the Patriots and you fall in love with one of those rookie wide receivers and they're there for you at 31, yeah, you can still take them. If you've made that trade for AJ Brown, you're not taking that guy, right? And so that's just the way I feel. Speaking of 31, by the way, I tweeted this out today. The more I read and see about Emmanuel Pregnon, I just and Vega from Penn State, I think, is incredible. I think him and Pregnon, I feel like, are pretty sure bets that they're going to be very good players in the NFL. Now it's guard. It's not a sexy position, and they just signed a left guard. They have a right guard on an expiring deal, but they have a right guard. I not that I'm advocating for them taking a guard in the first round. I'm not saying that. But man, Pregnon, he looks awesome. And and it's like, so I almost feel like if you're at 31 and you feel like that guy might be the best guy on the draft board, maybe you just take him, and then maybe Mike Onwenu gets moved. I don't know. I'm not saying trade Mike Onwenu. I'm not saying that, but you do that, or you say, yeah, we like Elijah Vera Tucker, but we don't know if he's going to be the guy forever, and maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't, and we have a guy that's that we feel comfortable with.
He gives you options. Yeah. I do think it's a hard sell if there's anyone at wide receiver, pass rusher, or even at safety, looking at guys like the and
McNeil Warren.
Yeah, McNeil Warren. It's just tough to project it over some of those with where the Patriots are in need.
Right.
Because you go best player available, but when you're at a certain point in the draft, all the players are they're going to be ranked similarly on your board, and that's where all right, scheme fit and need and things like that will become the determining factors.
Yeah.
I do think Pregnon's a good prospect and is someone who could make your offensive line better. And after what we saw, I think not just in the Super Bowl, but in the playoffs last year, and with this team's inability to consistently run the football last year, getting bigger, stronger, more physical on the line, long-term is something they need to do.
Yeah.
And that can happen not just in the first round of the draft, but on days 2 and 3, and in free agency, and in the trade market, and in player development. There's a lot of pathways to get there, but I don't think I could be mad in a vacuum about a pick like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
I have one more thing on the AJ Brown thing, by the way. To go back on. Fascinated by the fact that apparently the other team interested is the Rams. Fascinated by that. And you know what? I think it was the Athletic Pod the other day I was listening to brought up the fact the last time the Rams won the Super Bowl was also a year where they went all in on it.
Yep.
In a year where they were hosting the Super Bowl. It's back at SoFi this year.
Right.
And the point brought up, all right, are they just going to try to go all? I mean, I think timeline-wise they kind of have to anyway, but are they going to go all in on this year because they're hosting the Super Bowl again? And I think you look at it, Puka's someone who's gotten banged up a lot. Devontae Adams is getting older. AJ Brown does actually kind of fill a need for them. It's like the most expensive possible way to fill that need. But
Yeah.
that could be one of the best wide receiver cores we've ever seen assembled in the NFL with
I mean, that would be outrageous.
with a great quarterback and one of the best, if not the best, modern mind in offense in the NFL.
I mean, you can make a serious argument that A.J. Brown would be the third best receiver on that team.
Yeah.
Which was just ridiculous, you know?
It really...
Whether it's Brown or Adams, it doesn't matter.
Well, like they were kind of like Puka is not a durable player, so they let him take plays off, and they'll pull him off the field for other things. And it's like, all right, imagine if the Rams are just playing with two receivers on the field most of the time, but it's a rotation between those three, and they're always fresh.
Yeah.
I will say the flip side of this, the Rams could go all in and go trade for A.J. Brown, and I do think there's this thing in the NFL where we get worried about something, and then it doesn't happen. We'll go, oh, we didn't need to worry about that. And then it happens the next season. And I look at Matt Stafford and injuries, and I'm like, everyone was freaking out about this last year. And then he had an MVP season, and everyone's like, oh, he's fine.
Right.
Okay, sure, he still had all those issues and is 1 year older now. So Puka is injury prone. Devontae's older. We've talked a lot about the A.J. Brown injury stuff this year. There's a world where they go all in on that, and it just doesn't
backfires.
Work. Yeah. But I think it makes sense why they would take the risk. I mean, because if it backfires, it backfires. You're resetting after that anyway.
Well, that's ultimately what it comes down to, is that you're resetting, you know, and you trade a 2027 first round pick for A.J. Brown. Theoretically, right? Hypothetically, let's say they traded 2027 first for A.J. Brown. And now it's like, all right, we're really going all in. And that could be a top 10 pick if things really go sideways. Probably not, but it could. And so that's why, you know, if you're Philadelphia, you take that risk. You know, it's interesting. And we've seen what the Rams have done. You know, the Rams have consistently traded out of the first round. You know, I think they have one first round pick in the last however many years, and it's Jared Verse. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. You know, they kind of hit that one. So, and then I think they said, what did they say? The last first round pick they signed to an extension was Goff. Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And it's the thing that supports that entire thing. I mean, it's two things. It's one, it's the fact that you get Matt Stafford. That's your big thing. The other thing is they've drafted so well on days 2 and 3. Like, I'm just going back real quick, but like Terrence Ferguson last year was their first pick as a top, just inside the top 50 as a tight end, who was useful for them. Braden Fisk, Blake Corum, second and third round picks. Cameron Kinchins has been awesome for them in the secondary. Those three guys I just mentioned were all taken in a row. Let's see who they got. I mean, Steve Avila on the line, Byron Young. Oh, that's the other Byron Young. He's still Kobe Turner. Like, they've done a really good job in that area of the draft.
Yeah.
Puka Nacua kind of being the shining star there.
Right. And that's what you have to be able to do. Again, good drafting teams hit on their players in the first and second round. Great drafting teams hit on their players in the third round and then in day 3. Like, that's, in order to be a great drafting team, you have to hit on those picks. And if you hit on enough of them, then you can trade some of those first round picks for high impact players if you want to. Or you can take a risk on a guy because you have other guys that can fill in those spots at depth. And so, you know, it's just, that's one of the things, one of the areas the Patriots struggled at for many years at the end with Belichick. And then, you know, last year with Mayo, or 2 years ago with Mayo, was you just didn't hit on any of those later round picks. Now, you hit on Christian Gonzalez and you hit on Drake May, right? And you get some of those first round picks, which is great, but you're not hitting on those later round picks, right? Christian Barmore was a hit in the second round in 2021. Yeah. Marcus Jones,
Michael Onwenu.
Right? Mondre Stevenson, Mike Onwenu. Like, you're hitting on some of them. You're just not hitting on enough of them.
You're not hitting, big in the way that the Rams did with Puka.
Yeah, with Puka.
The other thing, too, with the Rams, everyone thinks about that, the F them picks Rams. In 2023, do you want to know how many draft picks the Rams made?
Ooh, 12.
You're almost on it. 14.
Oh, 14. That's insane.
And in 2024, they made 10 of them. They made fewer last year. But the whole thing is just, the draft is a crapshoot.
Yep.
So the strategy overall seems to be we're going to use our first round pick a lot of time and trade it to go fill an immediate need to get a sure thing. And then when we have a sure thing difference maker at a position of need, that makes drafting for the other positions easier because we're just looking to fill specific roles. Like we just need some guy who does X, Y, and maybe Z at a C plus B minus level to, all right, this guy's going to play 12 snaps in a game. We need him to be a run defender for those 12 snaps, or he needs to be our third safety who can play, a couple different types of zones and a couple different situations, things like that.
Yeah.
That makes it easier. And one of the reasons I think the Rams have been so good at drafting is that the roster is good. So there's less needs. You can just draft guys for specific roles or guys that you like. That makes things easier. It's 100%. A little bit harder to draft when you're honestly when you're in kind of this middle situation the Patriots are in. You end up in a weird spot to draft because I don't know, you're both drafting for the present and for the future, and you can't fill every hole at once. And if you're an awful team and you're drafting, it's just all right, best player. We're going to draft in the trenches. We're going to look for a quarterback. When you're really good, it's like, all right, we're just going to take who falls to us. It's when you're in the middle that I think things become so important.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough situation for the Patriots, and I also think it kind of brings me back to the Belichick years where it was like, yeah, we're just going to trade our picks because it's in the late the mid to late 20s. That's a first round pick, but that's a very, very different first round pick than 12 or 9 or 8. You're not taking a top 10 pick and trading it for players. You're taking a mid 20s, or I think they traded 19 to the Patriots for Brandon Cooks. I think it was either 18 or 19 when they drafted what's it called? What's his name? Wynn. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we're trading these later round picks. So it's not as big of a deal that we're moving on from these guys. And it's not a sure thing. And of course, no pick is a sure thing. But you feel really good about the top 10, right? You feel like you should be getting an impact player in the top 10. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's the way theoretically it should work. And so, you're not trading that guy. You're trading, a mid to late 20s pick, and that's a lot more manageable. And it's funny you kind of mentioned. I know we got to take a break in a minute, but you kind of mentioned where the Patriots are kind of at this middle road, and the difference between. I look at the difference between Denver going all in and the Patriots going all in. I think the Patriots told you what they think about this team and what they think about the talent level on this team. And I think that they're not saying it out loud, but they're doing it. They have retained 0 of their free agents. Not one single guy that they let get to free agency has been brought back. They had an opportunity to put an RFA tender on Jack Gibbons. They did not do it.
Did you see the money Jack Gibbons got, by the way?
It was a decent salary, was it not?
Yeah, up to $7 million with over 4 guaranteed. The tender would have been 3 point something.
Yeah.
I think we were in agreement that maybe turning down the tender for him was good because you could get him cheaper. I did not expect Jack Gibbons to get that kind of money. I'm okay with letting him walk if that was the money.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's, for me at least, I think that they're telling you what they think of these guys. Kayvon Chasen for $12 million is not that much money. You brought in a guy for more years and more money every year because you think he's better than him, right? You let Jalen Hawkins walk, and you get a guy that you think is better than him. Now it's a 1-year deal, and so we'll see what happens. But you're upgrading at that position. You feel like you're upgrading that position. You let Jack Gibbons walk, and I don't know if KJ Britt is an upgrade at that position or not, but you sign someone else in that spot, right? You let these guys leave. You trade Garrett Bradbury. So you're moving on, and you feel like we weren't good enough last year, right? Like we made it to the Super Bowl, and that's awesome. And maybe the Tonga thing, I think they may have screwed that up. They wanted to keep him, and they blew it. I think that they blew it. But nevertheless, for the most part, you're looking at it saying, yeah, we made it to the Super Bowl, and that's great. We're not good enough. We're not where we need to be, where we want to be, or we need to be just yet. And so we're going to move on from these guys, and we're going to bring in new guys because we got to get better at these spots. And we were good, and thank you for what you did, and it was a great run. But like, yep, not good enough. We got to get better at these spots, and so we're moving on from you, and we're bringing another guy in.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting approach. We talked about it earlier this week. Like it's a gamble to a degree. It's a gamble on your own development, your own coaching, your own evaluation, betting that you can, kind of do this again. I think they've earned at least some trust in that regard.
Yeah.
Very curious about, year 2 for Kyle Williams, year 2 for Joshua Farmer, year 2 in the system for Corey Durden, someone who's very outspoken.
Sure is.
Social media. Definitely someone they like his attitude. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
And that's, how many of these guys sink, how many of them swim next year, I think is one of my big questions. And then before we get to our ad break, I had one last Rams note just to tie the bow on that. We talk about the way they trade things. They get 2 first-round picks this year because of previous draft trades and the Michael Penix stuff. And they trade they go to the NFC Championship game, then trade the pick that's in the end of the first round to go get one of the top corners in the league who can help fix their defense. And then they still have a top 15 pick, which now they don't have to use on a corner, which was the biggest need they had on the roster, and you can use for anything, including trading if you would like to. If they want to go, I think 13 for A.J. Brown is crazy, but if you want to do that, you can. And it's just, really, really good use of assets for them combined with taking advantage of other teams doing dumb things.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And it's, that trade was so bad. But, it's just, it's interesting. So we'll see. We'll see what ultimately what happens there. By the way, Goey's asking about a comp pick back from Jack Gibbons. The Patriots are not getting a comp pick back from Jack Gibbons. They'll get nothing back. He wasn't an RFA because they didn't tender him. And I believe that the tender they would have put on him would have been.
It would have been an original round, which is a UDFA anyway. So
I was going to say, I think he was a UDFA. So you really just get first right of refusal if that's the case, or match or whatever the case may be. So,
with that contract you got in Arizona, I think he probably just would have gotten signed by Arizona anyway. Because the Patriots weren't going to match that.
I would agree. with that.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think Patriots getting any comp picks next year. Right?
Definitely not. Patriots will not be getting any comp pick. And by the way, there's been reports about people like, oh, they're holding off because they want, the comp picks next year. And it's like, why? Like, I get it. I understand that comp picks are valuable. And there are times when I think you should care about that. Like, the best example that I can give you off the top of my head is the Joe Thuney situation, right? You let Joe Thuney walk in 2020 when Tom Brady walks, because then you get a second, third round draft pick for him. Instead of letting him walk in 2021 after you paid him $20 million for 1 year to play, and then he walks and you get nothing because you signed a ton of guys in free agency. That's stupid. That's dumb, right? Like, if you have a guy that's going to be signed to the top of the market, I can understand why you're playing that. But, like, you also need to be paying attention to, like, are there guys that are really good? I don't know. So,
well, I think comp picks are useful, but also a little bit overrated in terms of like strategizing. Like, they're useful in that if you have a really good player who you can't afford to pay because your team is good, you're going to get a little something back the next year. But like the Patriots would have been better off with someone like Thuney to just, if you weren't going to keep him, just trade him, and you're going to get a pick that's higher than, at the absolute best, the end of the third round, if he's one of the highest paid free agents that leaves and you don't sign anyone else to a similar contract.
Correct.
Like, you could get, even if you get a third round pick back for Joe Thuney, that's an improvement over what you hypothetically may have gotten back in a comp pick.
Absolutely.
So that's just better asset management.
And not just that, but Yeah, you could be in the situation like the Patriots were with J.C. Jackson, where he gets top of the market money from LA, and it doesn't matter because he gets hurt halfway through the season, so he doesn't play enough snaps, and you get I can't remember what was a fourth or a fifth round pick, but you get a fourth or a fifth round pick instead of a third round pick because who cares what the contract he signed was? He didn't play the percentage of snaps he needed to play in order for you to get a third round pick. So it's just like that makes a difference too, So sometimes that happens and you end up getting screwed by it, and you're, I guess banking on a third round pick and you don't get one. It's kind of silly to play that game. But anyways, all right, let's take a quick break and then we'll kind of run through some of these AFC opponents. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because we're already 45 minutes in.
Yeah, we'll go for it.
So the playoff push is heating up and tournament hoops are here. And there's no better way to cash in if you're right on the high-flying hoops action than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. Every bucket, every dime, and every win means more when you're playing on Prize Picks. And with their brand new Team Picks markets, you can now pick game winners, spreads, and totals on top of the player picks you already know. So cash in if you're right during all the clutch buckets, slam dunks, and Cinderellas this spring with Team Picks on Prize Picks. Don't forget as well, as I said, you can pick the winner straight up on Prize Picks. Who's going to win the next basketball game? Who's going to win the fight? Back your takes with real money. Okay? And they have early payouts as well. So if your lineup hits a few of them early, you can actually cash out early on some of those early ones. Pretty sweet. Team Picks are available now in 35 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Washington, and more. It makes it super easy to pick game winners, spreads, and totals, all on Prize Picks. So what are you going to do? Download the Prize Picks app today and pick your first game winner, spread, or total as the playoff push rolls on. You're going to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup when you use the code CLNS. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right.
Should we want me to lead our next segment here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We figured we'd quickly go through and start looking at how other teams did in free agency. So we're just going to look at the AFC opponents the Patriots are facing this year, and we'll go through this quick. We're at 48 minutes into this. We could do 2 minutes per, basically. Thoughts on each team's offseason. Let's start in division. Buffalo Bills. Big move, trading for DJ Moore, re-signing Connor McGovern. They sign Bradley Chubb. They trade away Teron Johnson, release Curtis Samuel and Taylor Rapp. They actually extended Dawson Knox, which I find very interesting. They signed Geno Stone and CJ Gardner-Johnson. And I believe AJ Epinesa also signed elsewhere for them.
He did, yes. Yeah.
And that's just player movement. You also have a new head coach there. So thoughts?
I mean, I think there's no doubt that they're a better team than they were last year. The question really that you have to ask yourself is what is going to happen with the new, and I'm using air quotes here, with the quote unquote new head coach when you're just promoting your offensive coordinator. How much change are you really getting if you're just moving your offensive coordinator up to head coach? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But if I were the Bills and I felt like we needed a culture reset, which is kind of what I think that they thought they needed, I would have just cleaned house. And I would have said, hey, mentally, we're not there. We're going to get those guys out and get new guys in. We'll see if it works for them. But I think on paper, they're a better team talent-wise than they were last year. I don't think there's really any question about that.
Yeah, I think that's probably correct. And I also don't really like their offseason that much because I don't think they correctly identified their problems, and their solutions are overpaying for DJ Moore and overpaying for Bradley Chubb. And I don't know, it seems like you're once again searching for Band-Aids on things because you haven't been able to manage your team or your cap or your drafts very well around your quarterback. So I don't know. I don't think it sets them up for success long term. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with that as well.
All right, let's go down south. Miami Dolphins. The big signing for them is Malik Willis, 3 years,
huge.
$67.5 million. They signed Joshua Uche as well and David Ojabo. So a couple edge rushers there. You trade away Jaylen Waddle. You release Tua. You release Tyreek Hill. They trade Minka Fitzpatrick. They released Bradley Chubb, who we just talked about. They released Alec Ingold and Liam Eichenberg as well. So a lot going out there in South Beach.
They're a
And they
mess.
have the highest dead cap in the NFL by a wide margin.
Oh yeah. They're a complete mess. This is a team. It's so funny because last year we were like either they're going to be like the worst team in football or they're going to be awesome, and they were one of the worst teams in football. They weren't the worst, obviously, but they were one of the worst teams in football for good stretches of the time of the season last year. I think that this team's going to stink. I think they're going to they probably won't. We'll see if they finish last in the division, but they'll be fighting for last place in the division with the Jets. They're just not good, and I think that they're kind of on their way to tanking.
Yeah, agreed. I think they're a worse team, and I think that's probably the best option for them. They needed.
Yeah.
We just talked about it. They needed to clean house and reset. They cleaned house and reset, and this is the pain year, and you hope you can build. This is they say forest fires are good because they help clear for new growth.
Yeah,
that's the Miami Dolphins right now.
Yeah, agreed.
Last team in the division, New York Jets. On the coach front, they keep Aaron Glenn and cleaned house outside of that. So, coach on the hot seat, bringing in a whole fresh staff. They franchise tagged Breece Hall, traded for Minka Fitzpatrick. We already have duplicate names in here. Traded for Geno Smith. They signed Demario Davis. When they traded for Minka Fitzpatrick, they extended him as well. They signed Joseph Osai for relatively big money. Dylan Parham, David Onyemata, Kingsley Enagbare, Nashawn Wright, who had a ton of picks last year for the Bears. And then at safety, Dane Belton re-signed Andre Sisco. And they trade away Justin Fields there, quarterback. A lot of movement in New York.
Tons of movement. I don't know. I guess I understand it. I don't really. Are they better than last year? I guess theoretically they're better than last year because anything's an improvement over Justin Fields, although the way Geno Smith played, maybe not. But yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. This is one of those ones for me where I'm like, I don't know why you kept the coach. I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. You fired literally everyone but the head coach. It makes no sense to me. I'm not on board with this. I'm not on board with this. So as a Patriots fan, I'm on board with it, but I'm not on board with it as if I were a Jets fan.
Yeah, it is. They lost Quincy Williams, mentioned in the chat there.
Yeah,
he signed with the Browns at linebacker. I think it's and Jermaine Johnson they traded away. They added in Devondre Sweat. I think it's pretty clear that they have a lot of veterans up the middle. So Minka Fitzpatrick, Demario Davis, and David Onyemata up the middle, and Devondre Sweat that they all add in. You get a couple of pass rushers. Seems like they're remaking this defense with veterans in the mold of what Aaron Glenn wants it to be.
Yeah.
So I think that raises the floor for what they're going to be next year. Geno Smith also, in theory, should be better than what they had. I kind of look at this roster and I'm like, if they do well and if they add some decent pieces in the draft, this could be a 6 or 7 win team. Right. Which might be the worst case scenario because it's not good enough for Aaron Glenn to save his job, but you're not going to be able to pick a quarterback the next year. So I'm not sure I see a coherent long-term strategy. I do think the Jets are going to be better next year, somewhat significantly better, probably just, I think, more baseline competence across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know if they'll actually when we say they're better, I don't know if they're going to be better, but
it's hard to be worse than they were. That's for sure. And they can be significantly better and still not be anywhere close to a contender. Which that's kind of that 6 to 7 win range. Feels like it might end up being right for them. Which, that's a team good enough to steal a game or two in the division. if things go right on any particular Sunday or Monday night or Thursday night or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's go outside of the division here. We'll start with a trio of teams visiting Foxborough this year, and let's start with a rematch of the AFC Championship game. Denver Broncos. We just talked about them trading for Jaylen Waddle. They also re-signed J.K. Dobbins. They tendered Jaquan McMillan. It's basically just keeping guys in-house. Justin Strenad, linebacker, Adam Troutman, Alex Singleton. The only guy that they got rid of was Dre Greenlaw, who they released.
Yeah.
They haven't really. And PJ Locke. They lost John Franklin Myers on the defensive line is probably the most significant.
The significant one.
But basically no player movement here for Denver outside of John Franklin Myers out, Jaylen Waddle in.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. And look, I think that they're still a force to be reckoned with, right? I think Sean Payton is a great offensive coach. If he can coach Jaylen Waddle up, and assuming he can stay healthy, I think they have a very good offense again this year. I am interested to see what their running back room looks like next year. I think that what the heck's the kid's name? KJ, right? KJ.
You're thinking of KJ Hamler.
That's what I am thinking about. Who the heck is the
Marvin? We're talking running back.
Running back.
RJ Harvey.
RJ Harvey. Thank you. I knew I had J in there somewhere. So it started, the last name started with an H. So I was right about that, but wrong decade. But nevertheless, I'm interested to see kind of what happens with him, and if he ends up being the number one back, which I think he probably will be. But anyways, I think they're still a good team. They're still going to have a good defense. Losing John Franklin Myers hurts because he was very, very good against the run. But now, you have picks you can use to try to get that. I love the defensive tackles in this year's draft. I think this defensive tackle class is like one of my favorite D tackle classes in the last few years. A lot of guys I really like on there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them grab one of those guys and, see if they can kind of patch things up defensively. Still a really good team. And if Bo Nix plays the way he played last year, which it seems like he's capable of doing on a consistent basis, they're going to be a contender in the NFL.
Yeah. This all seems like a bet on Sean Payton and his ability to continue to work with those players. And he's been a good coach for a long time. So I don't think that's a bad bet. Clearly a very high floor for Denver next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how high does the ceiling actually end up being with Bo Nix as your quarterback? And, as always, you could say you're a high floor team. Being a high floor team is always somewhat dependent on the quarterback. And I think with the questions around Bo Nix, and I look at his health, so what happened with his ankle and the comments after the season about this being what Sean Payton, it was like a ticking time bomb or something, like whatever that was. It's like, all right,
it was weird.
This is something they think could happen again. There's always going to be a little bit of, well, if it happens again. So I do have to say I like the offseason. I do think it's a good one for Denver, and their visit to New England next year is going to be very fun.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go a little bit further west from Denver out to Las Vegas. An eventful offseason for Tom Brady's Las Vegas Raiders. They give Tyler Linderbaum top of the market guard money at center. You signed Jalen Naylor, Kwity Paye, Nakobe Dean, and Quay Walker. So you're bringing in both of those Georgia linebackers. Re-signed Malcolm Kuntz. They are the team that traded for Teron Johnson. We talked about that with the Bills. I signed Spencer Burford. They traded away Geno Smith. And then the biggest move is the one that doesn't happen, the Max Crosby situation. Plus, obviously, a new coaching situation there with Clint Kubiak. I feel like you have to give this at least a B+, if not an A, as an offseason for them.
Yeah, I love it. Look, I mean, you gave Tyler Linderbaum an absolutely stupid contract. $27 million a year for a center is crazy. I believe it's $10 million more than the next guy is making.
On average value, yeah.
Right. But he's an incredible center, right? And if you're drafting a rookie quarterback at number one, which they are, it makes sense that you want to solidify your offensive line, and particularly the center position. If the center is going to call out the protections, if he's going to make the guy comfortable behind the that's going to be under center, I just think that makes sense. Would I have spent that much on Tyler Linderbaum? No, but it's just money, and were way under the cap, so they had a ton of money to spend. So what the heck, So I think that it makes sense from that perspective. I think they're a significantly better team than they were last year. The Max Crosby trade would have helped them long term to get 2 first-round draft picks back. Would have been great. Max Crosby is also like arguably the second best edge rusher in the NFL. So that's okay too. So it's okay having him as well. Yeah. Right. And so, it's one of those things where it's like you get him back and you have all the additions that you had as well. I think that's a huge win for them. They still have the cap money to deal with all that stuff. So it's okay, cap wise. They're not in a bad situation. And you have the number 1 overall pick where you're going to take Mendoza. And frankly, they're another team significantly better than they were last year. We'll see how Mendoza does when he gets into the league, but it's difficult to imagine him being worse than Geno was last year. So you gotta assume this is going to be a much improved team.
Yeah, better coach. They're a better landing spot for a rookie quarterback now. This team's going to finish last in the AFC West. They should, with how much talent is in that division, but they're better. Yeah. And I think they came to New England and beat the Patriots last year, so I don't expect that to happen next year, even though they should be a better team. But that'll be an interesting marker whenever that game happens. Yeah,
it's going to be really interesting. I'm curious to see kind of what happens and where they kind of go from here. But they're a fascinating football team. That's definitely for sure. And can you believe Pete Carroll was a head coach there? It's like I almost feel like that just never happened. Like Pete Carroll just never came back.
Too. Yeah, weird.
What a mess.
Yeah. We're gonna move around the AFC here to the AFC North. Thanks to the Week 18 matchup, the Pittsburgh Steelers, not the Baltimore Ravens, are going to be the team visiting New England next year. Probably the biggest move here is that they traded for and extended Michael Pittman. I think that's probably the big move. Signed Jaquan Brisker, Sebastian Joseph Day, Rico Dowdle, Jamel Dean, extended Cameron Hayward. They've re-signed Asante Samuel Jr., who I didn't even realize was there. Released Jonnu Smith, Isaac Seumalo, one of their starting guards left. Kenneth Gainwell, Calvin Austin out the door. James Pierre goes to Minnesota, so losing some guys in the secondary there. Probably the biggest note here, 2 biggest notes for Pittsburgh. 1, new coach, no Mike Tomlin. In Mike McCarthy, swapping out a defensive specialty coach named Mike with 1 Super Bowl after a generation of great quarterback play for an offensive coach named Mike with 1 Super Bowl after a generation of great quarterback play. We're just the same thing, just in a different font there. And as of March 19th, the Steelers do not have a quarterback, although it is expected, it seems like, to be Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, the Steelers are a weird team, man. The Mike McCarthy thing makes absolutely no sense. I assume that they're just going all in on Aaron Rodgers, but like even still, I hate it. I think it's stupid. I wouldn't have done it. I just think it's crazy. Like Mike McCarthy kind of stinks as a head coach, and so I guess sure you're getting Aaron Rodgers back, but like at what cost is what I would say. I like the Michael Pittman move. I don't love a lot of their moves outside of that, but I guess maybe they're better this year, but I don't know. I tend to think that they could easily finish third in this division, and I wouldn't be surprised
probably
at all.
Should.
Yeah.
Everything feels like lateral moves here.
Yeah.
And they'll probably somehow finish 9-8 still. Like I don't
Right.
A big competitive team. They still have good players. Like they're not bad.
Right. They just didn't make themselves a lot better.
Yeah, there's just no long-term strategy.
And did they replace Seumalo?
No. Let me pull up
I don't think they did.
Our Lads to see who it projects as the starters. Now it's Spencer Anderson has the projected left guard right now.
Yeah. So they didn't replace him. So you got to imagine they're looking guard at some point, maybe even in the first round, right? Maybe that's where what's his face goes, Vega goes, right? And I think it's
I
Ione.
don't think
Is it Ione?
I don't know, something
I
like
don't
that.
know. But either way,
The Steelers do have a ton of draft picks. They have
yeah,
3 third-round picks, 2 fourths, and then 3 sevenths. So I wonder if they're kind of going one last gasp with Aaron Rodgers and then kind of transition into the future after that.
yeah,
It's
yep,
weird. It's not what I would do. They probably aren't bad next year.
yeah.
All right. Then we're going to go to the road teams in the AFC the Patriots face. We'll start with Kansas City Chiefs. The big question there is going to be about Patrick Mahomes and his health.
Mm-hmm.
But Travis Kelce is returning. Kenneth Walker is the big signing there, who I think is a very, very interesting one. Alohi Gilman, Kyrus Tonga on defense, Kader Kohu as well. We mentioned Tonga, another name we know, Tyquan Thornton sticking around there. They trade for Justin Fields. They trade away Trent McDuffie, and then I'm blanking on the name right now. The other starter in the secondary last year also leaves
Yeah, that was his name.
for LA. Jaylen Watson.
Watson, right? Thank you. Yep.
So secondary in need for the Chiefs. They're kind of in this weird transitional period, and I believe they now have 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, they do, and they're kind of They're another one that's kind of retooling on the fly. Seemed like Jeremiah Love was going to be an easy pick for them in the first round. They have obviously end up going with Kenneth Walker, which I love for them. I think that's a really good fit for what they want to do. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Let's see when Patrick Mahomes comes back healthy and what he looks like when he does. That's the big question: is what does Mahomes look like when he comes back healthy? What does Travis Kelce look like this year? And that defense, that secondary is going to be a big question mark, man. They got rid of 2 good corners, one really, really good one good one, Watson. What does that defense look like? I think that's really the big question that I have, more so than anything else. And goalie mentions Brian Cook left as well, a safety for them.
Yep.
I don't.
Menahu gone.
Yeah. It's a lot of people leaving town, man. And look, I understand that it's, that is, it's what Mahomes can do, and it's what Andy Reid can do. I still don't love it. That concerns me a lot if I were a Chiefs fan.
And I think they're in a transitional period, so I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back next year, and I think they're okay with that.
Yeah.
I am very curious about the Justin Fields of it all.
Yeah.
We'll see when Mahomes returns and how he looks, but I think trading for Fields tells me that they think there's at least a chance Mahomes is missing significant time next year, and they want to have somebody else at that position. And that's a very interesting. Fields is not a good quarterback, but he can run, and with Andy Reid, that fascinates me. So they're a curious team. From the Patriots' perspective, what matters most is when do you play them?
Yeah.
When's that game? But yeah, the Chiefs strike me as a team that, let's say they get Mahomes for half the season, they probably finish somewhere around 500.
I agree. Yeah. I really hope it's before Thanksgiving, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's hopefully going to be the road trip this year, so we'll see.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's a Week 16 or 17 game for New England.
Yeah.
So you get that Drake May, Patrick Mahomes battle right before the playoffs.
Yeah, agreed.
Feels like something they would do like that. I don't know what the Christmas game situation is next year, but I could see.
Makes me sad. Yeah. Makes me sad. That's where I want to go. But what are you going to do?
Yeah. All right, 2 more AFC teams. We'll wrap up the AFC West right here. The Patriots head to LA to face the Chargers in a rematch of the AFC wildcard round. Chargers doing a lot, re-signing Khalil Mack. They add Tyler Biadasz, who was cut by the Commanders, Charlie Kolar, Cole Strange, Keaton Mitchell, Alec Ingold, re-signing a couple other guys on that front and on that defense. Released Mekhi Beckman, who struggled last year. Released Bradley Bozeman, Bradley Bozeman, who struggled last year. Retired. And then Odafe Owe, who was one of their top pass rushers, he walks out the door. He gets big money elsewhere. Zion Johnson, who was a starter for them on a bad offensive line, he leaves for the Browns. I don't know. I think that you add Mike McDaniel to the coaching staff, which is probably an upgrade for you. You lose Jesse Minter from your defensive coaching staff, which is probably something that's going to hurt.
Yep.
Your biggest additions probably come in the form of healthy offensive linemen at tackle. Hopefully.
Well, yeah, and that's really what it comes down to, right? Is that a horrendous offensive line by the end of the year, right? And you look at it and say, you look at their moves and you say, whoa, your offensive line was horrendous last year. What are you doing? And then you remember that they have a really good left tackle and a really good right tackle, and they just need those guys to be healthy. And so if Slater and Alt come back healthy, instantly that offensive line is really good. And maybe not really good, might be a stretch, but instantly their tackle room is one of the best tackles, one of the best tackle tandems in the league, if not the single best.
Yeah.
And so, if that's the case, then you say, okay, well, how does Tyler Biadasz make them better at the center spot? They lose Zion Johnson. They get rid of Mekhi Becton, but, they bring in Cole Strange. We'll see what he can do. He's probably just a backup for them, but can some other guys step up and be their starting guards this year? I assume they'll spend some draft capital on guards this year as well. But if those tackles are healthy, you feel pretty good about their offensive line. And, I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, they're still the Chargers. And the Chargers going to Charger. Like, I'm not worried about the Chargers long term, but I do think that, the Chargers can make some noise in that AFC West.
Well, I think as of right now, they should probably be favored to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. Curious if they do. I don't know. Well, this is going to be a playoff matchup for New England, playoff rematch for New England. So,
true.
Excited to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Last team here, the Patriots heading down south to face the Jaguars. When was the last time the Patriots played in Jacksonville? I believe the last past game in Jacksonville was 2018, right? That loss early in the season.
I think you're right, because they played Jacksonville overseas.
In London.
2 years ago? Not last year, but the year before that.
Because it was it's every 3 years you play in the divisional rotation. So it was 2018 on the road, 2021 at home at the end of the Urban Meyer era, and 2024 back on the road, but that's in London.
Right.
And now this is the first time they're matching up because of the same place in the division in a while, probably since the David Garrard era, Byron Leftwich era.
Because the Patriots were the worst, and then they were, yeah.
So, Patriots heading back down south here at pretty quiet offseason for the Jags, at least at the moment. We've heard the trade rumors there about Brian Thomas Jr., but nothing has happened. They signed Chris Rodriguez Jr. at running back and re-signed Monteric Brown, released Johnny Munt at tight end, Andrew Wingard at safety walked, Greg Newsome at corner walked, Devin Lloyd and Travis Etienne are probably the two biggest losses at linebacker and running back, both going to the NFC South.
By the way, that's Devin Lloyd.
Devin Lloyd.
Yes, thank you, man.
Jags probably worse, but building on what they had internally.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Also, we didn't talk about this, but the Travis Etienne thing is so weird. Like, I forget who it was. I'm trying to think of who it was that said it. I think it was Kyle Brandt, maybe. I forget who it was.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter. One of those guys was saying, like, just say what your name is. Like, it's your name. Like, you're a professional athlete. Just tell us what your name is, and just require all the idiots out there to get it right. It doesn't matter. Like, Tyler Shuck's a great example of this. There is not one person on the history on the earth that thinks that Tyler Shuck's last name should be Shuck. But when you find out that Tyler Shuck's last name is Shuck, then guess what? You freaking say Tyler Shuck. You don't say Tyler Show. You say Tyler Shuck because that's what his name is.
Well, and this brings us back to Clemson, where he said he tried to correct people. They just wouldn't say it correctly.
It's crazy.
This is something I ran into just covering college sports, is that the players will put their name pronunciation. Like, there's a pronunciation guide available to the press If you're curious how an athlete's name is pronounced, you can probably find an example in a pronunciation guide somewhere of how it's supposed to be said.
Yeah.
It's just kind of shocking how many people don't in the media don't look for that and don't do it correctly. And I
It's
shout out the ones
embarrassing.
that do. Well, it's just like, to me, it's a basic respect thing. Like, it's
Right.
their name, get it right. And it's okay if you're gonna make mistakes or mess it up sometime. Like, it's not the end of the world. Everybody, especially people, have names that look weird. Like, it's that
Right.
or look like they're pronounced one way and they're pronounced a different way. And like, I get that with my last name sometimes, and that's
Yeah.
fine. Like, it's not a big deal. But credit to him for finally correcting the record. And it is so funny to me. I love the way language evolves. That you look at how Achan, as in Devon Achan, is spelled, and
Right.
you look at Travis, it looks like Etienne is spelled, and the fact that just those two things can end up being pronounced essentially the same way. I
Right.
think technically there's a little difference there, but it's fun.
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's kind of cool. So, but as far as the Jags are concerned, I think you're kind of right here, where they're gonna lean into their guys getting better. And who knows what happens with Brian Thomas Jr. We'll kind of see, but they're gonna hopefully get more, or for them at least, hopefully get more out of Travis Hunter this year. They're thinking that Basil Tootin is probably going to be, if not their number one back, they're kind of their feature back, let's say. When you let HN walk away. And so it's like one of those things where you just feel like, okay, can we continue to build on the success that we had? Yeah, we might take a little step back. Yeah, we may have lost some guys, but we're going to trust our young guys are going to grow, and we can grow them. So we'll see if they're able to do it. But I think that I don't mind them betting on that.
Yeah, and that's new coaching staff and everything. You're molding the team in that image, and I don't know. In the NFL, progress is not always linear either. You take steps forward and backward, and
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the fact that they got such a good year out of Trevor Lawrence, I think, is a big deal for them.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe who knows what they can do this year. So we'll see. By the way, is St. Louis a good basketball team?
Yes.
Okay. So see, I didn't know this. I don't watch
Josh
college
Schertz, their
basketball.
coach, very good. They have a very fun style of play. They're very up tempo.
Yeah, they're destroying Georgia right now. Just absolutely taking them to the woodshed.
Yeah.
And
Josh Schertz, their coach, a number of programs wanted to poach him away, and it sounds like St. Louis is ponying up the money to get him to stay at least one more year. So
I love it. I love it. That's great. You always like it when those kind of mid-major teams are able to do that. So I also love the High Point coach just basically being like, look, play us. Like, play us and see how good we are. Like, no one will play us. Miami of Ohio, no one will play them. Like, play us and see how good we are.
The issue, one of the big issues in the sport, there's 10 to 15 teams every year in college basketball that play in a conference that isn't great, but as a team are much better than the conference they play in, or at least teams that by the metrics are going to be top 120 or top 100 in the country when most of their conference is between like 175 and 250.
Right.
And there's just no incentive for anyone near the top to schedule them and play that game.
Right.
Because they don't gain anything by beating that team. And if they lose a game that's probably on their home floor, that ends up being really embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
So it's if you're a high major team in college basketball, the way the system is set up, your best bets are schedule games where if you win it, that win alone will help you make the tournament in a big way, or games that are going to be very hard for you to lose. So you don't end up with that loss on your resume.
Agreed.
And these teams in the middle kind of get left out. I don't really know what the solution to that is because it's such a small group of teams and it changes every year. And for every like Miami was expected to be better this year, but for every Miami that you're scared to schedule because they're going to be one of those good mid majors, there's a team that is going to be one of those good mid majors that doesn't end up being good, or one that you just don't see coming. Like, I don't know. The sport's weird. You got 365 teams. You only play 31 games in the regular season.
Right.
If you're looking for a perfect way to do this, I think you're kind of missing the point of college basketball, to be honest.
I would agree.
The messiness and the chaos is the fun.
That's kind of the whole point, right? I agree. So, all right. Well, I think that does it for us tonight. Thanks
out
everyone
next
for
week.
tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the madness. Matt is out next week, so it'll be the Pat Lane show with a few guests. We'll get some guests on, but I'll be back on Monday and on Monday, Thursday, just like normal. So with someone else sitting in the other seat. So we'll see what happens. So, but anyways, enjoy the rest of the tournament. Enjoy your weekend full of basketball. Hopefully. Maybe we'll even get some Patriots moves. You never know. You never know. Things could happen. So hopefully, we didn't even get a chance to talk about Forge and Foxborough. We'll talk about that at a later date.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet. So
You know what? I haven't either. And with March Madness, it's like, yeah, it's an hour and a half. I'm not going to get a chance to watch that. So I'll watch it. I'll watch it next week probably. So,
yeah.
So anyways, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate it. Thanks for the chat as always. Be good to each other.